So if you're relatively new to Sydney Melbourne Touring, let's just have a look at a quick overview. We'll bring up a map here. So you can see we have two key drives between Sydney and Melbourne, one of them being the Coastal Drive, the other being the Inland or Heritage Drive. Now, it's important to know that these are just lines on a map. It doesn't mean that a consumer will stick to that line exactly. It's just the primary way to get from A to B. And then what we talk about in all of our training is all of the wonderful places, experiences, villages and so forth that you can explore off that line as you make your way between Australia's capital cities and, of course, the capital city of Australia, Canberra. So that's how that all works and how that all operates. Michael from Moonlit Sanctuary has said, coming through, fine, Paul. So it's good to know we're going into the Mornington Peninsula loud and clear as well. So this is the sort of map that we use when we're promoting our drives. We have a committee of management that we report to. So in terms of how Sydney Melbourne Touring is structured, we have Alison Conroy from Destination Gippsland, Sue Harper from Visit Albury Wodonga, Louise Monk-Clint from Sun Country on the Murray, that's the Yarrawonga Mulwala area, Catherine McKenzie from Echuca Moama, who we know is watching and it's loud and clear in Echuca, which is great, Glenn Harvey from the City of Bendigo, who is our new chair, Sarah Starr, we affectionately call her Sarah Starr from Visit Canberra. I have had lessons on the surname pronunciation, but I do need to practice a little bit. So Sarah Starr is fantastic to have Visit Canberra as a part of our program. Anthony Osborne, he basically represents the whole south coast of New South Wales on the Coastal Drive, and he's based in Sapphire Coast tourism area. And of course, our biggest funding partner remains to be Visit Victoria, has been from year one. And Visit Victoria also sit on our Committee of Management as on an advisory capacity. Now, I mentioned there that Glenn Harvey is our brand new chair at the last AGM, but probably less than a month ago now. And Glenn joins us now. So, Glenn, how are you going?
I'm really well, thanks, Paul. It's great to be here, and hello, SMT partners and everyone that's tuning in this morning. And I'm really sort of pleased and to have the opportunity to talk to you this morning about SMT and all the
Fabulous.
great things that are going on.
That is really awesome. And you know what? I've got a little remote control that changes my slides there, and I've lost it. I don't know where it's gone. It's fallen down the couch somewhere. So I'll just make up some questions. So obviously you're brand new to the role, and we certainly have to say a very big thank you to Terry Robinson, who has been the immediate past chair of Sydney Melbourne Touring for 6 years. Glenn's just taken over at our most recent AGM. But in terms of your role and even the City of Bendigo, how long have you been involved in Sydney Melbourne Touring, Glenn?
Well, I've been with the City of Greater Bendigo for around about 13 years now in the tourism team there, and I've been marketing manager for the last 9 years. And so I've been involved with Sydney Melbourne since being marketing manager when I took over that role, and more recently have joined the committee in the last 2 years. And so I've had a long relationship with Sydney Melbourne, and I guess for many years I was at the other end working with our operators to get people on board and really sell the benefits of the international market and what Sydney Melbourne can bring. So it's really good to be part of the committee more recently and now chair, and now I can be at the other end and really help strategically where Sydney Melbourne is going. Another thing I just wanted to also add that last year I did the Coastal Drive, and this year the Heritage Drive with my family. So I know both touring routes quite well, and I've had a ball on both of them. So it's nice that I don't have to completely, become familiar with the product. I really have a good understanding from my own personal experience already to some degree, which is great.
That's great, Glenn. And one of the things that I really love with Sydney Melbourne Touring is its stability. Anthony and I are going into our 11th or probably 12th year now with Sydney Melbourne Touring, but in the whole time that we've been associated, there's only ever been, counting you, 3 chairs. So we had Ken Hoare at the very start. We lost Ken from a cancer battle, unfortunately, and then Terry stepped into the role, and now you've stepped in. So in terms of longevity of chairman, we have a very, very stable committee of management, which just makes it so much easier to be able to work with that stability in an organisation like a touring route.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the keys to success with many organisations, to have people that are in stable roles for a long time with a great vision really makes a huge difference. And so hopefully I'll be around for a while and can add a lot of value in that role. And I'm looking forward to working with the committee and everyone out there and really, building on the great success of this touring route already.
Yeah. Speaking of longevity, I should probably do a little bit of a shout out to Catherine McKenzie. because when we went through the committee of management there before, Catherine was actually involved right from the very start, right from day one. I was actually a trainee tourism officer back then at Tourism Albury-Wodonga, and the Inland Drive was originally set up as the capital and country touring route, and Catherine was actually involved at that stage, and yet here we are today, some 20-something years later,
Yes.
and Catherine is probably will have to be the longest-serving, continuing partner of Sydney Melbourne Touring, and great to see that Catherine's online and watching us now as well. Glenn, one more question. How would you say the international visitor landscape has changed in the Bendigo area over the last, say, 10 to 20 years?
Sure. So originally we got involved with Sydney Melbourne and really relied on Sydney Melbourne to market us, particularly to the Western markets, and that's been a long-term strategy of ours. Probably more recently, in the last 10 years, Bendigo in its own right has got involved at the likes of the Australian Tourism Exchange and the international market as a short break out of Melbourne. So we've been targeting particularly Southeast Asia and New Zealand. And so we've been growing that market in addition to Sydney, Melbourne. And so I think probably the biggest change I've seen is that we're not far from Melbourne, and I think access is a lot better these days, particularly with touring routes like Sydney Melbourne. We have the Calder freeway that's had a lot of work done in the last 10 years, so it makes it a lot more accessible. Places like Bendigo, and certainly with the Heritage Drive, with the first port of call out of Melbourne, so it's a nice, very easy way to get on the touring route and explore Bendigo. And also with accessibility, we've recently had Qantas that have announced daily flights from Sydney to Bendigo, and that's going incredibly well. So it's been happening since March, and so I think there's a really great opportunity for people to fly into Bendigo, and then they could actually start the journey there if they wanted. So more accessibility, more access points. I know we've been working closely with Craig, who's going to be talking shortly from Murray River Paddle Steamers, with the idea that Craig was looking at potentially picking people up from Melbourne Airport or Bendigo Airport and actually beginning that journey. So I think accessibility is being a big change. I think we're seeing more people that when we go to AT that are talking about South Drive. When we first started going to AT, it was all group or predominantly group, and that's a very hard market for particularly for a destination that's probably not frontline in international. We're probably a second, third visit for many countries. So to actually hear that more and more are wanting self-drive as a real growth area, particularly west and now east, really puts us in a great opportunity, not just for Bendigo, but for Sydney, Melbourne as well, that this seems to be the new wave of growth, that people are wanting to get out and explore. They're not wanting as much to do the big tour groups on the buses anymore. They're actually wanting to jump in a car, have that freedom, and have that opportunity to go and explore Australia. So we're seeing that every time we go to AT, there's more and more of that. There's less about meeting with agents saying, we just do group-only day trips. And so I think from a Bendigo point of view and from Sydney, Melbourne, that's a great opportunity for us all. And I think you'll continue to see that. So that's some other things we're seeing. I think we're making it easier now too with a lot of countries with the language barriers that probably were 10, 15 years ago, which made it quite hard. More and more, I think we're finding that's less of a barrier to some degree, I think, and that's making it more accessible. Places like Bendigo and others, that you don't necessarily have to translate for everything. Obviously that helps, but there's more and more people have great English and can understand what, I guess, Australia when they come out. There are still some countries that need translation, but I think it's less of a barrier than it used to be. So, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest change: accessibility, and the fact that we're seeing more and more self-drive and a willingness to actually get beyond the cities and wanting to explore by car and by train and by plane.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time, Glenn. It's good to get an update from you, and welcome aboard as chair. I have to be really nice to Glenn because effectively as chair he becomes the new boss. And so far so good. I think we've hit it off on the right.
We're off to a great start.
Right start. But we've been mates in the tourism industry for 20 odd years anyway. So looking forward to this new partnership, and long may we continue the successes of Sydney Melbourne Touring together.
Great. Thanks very much, Paul, and thanks everyone for tuning in today. And we hope you get something out of this, and happy to talk to anyone on the touring route if there's anything you want to talk to me or to Paul, to Ant. So we're really looking forward to working with everyone.
That's fabulous, Glenn. Thank you so much for that. So now we move on and talk about perhaps some of the Sydney Melbourne Touring achievements. And while I'm talking about that, our guests can swap over. So I guess one of the biggest achievements we had was our live stream video training. Now, obviously, we're live streaming right now. And you can see on these images here, we've got cameras, we've got vision switching desks, like you can see Anthony down there on the bottom right-hand side. On the bottom left-hand side was one of the tests locations that we did. This was at the beautiful Jetty Road Retreat in East Gippsland. And look at the weather we had on this particular day. We had George Yoshevsky, who was our MC, if you like, and he was interviewing various guests and so forth. And the audience for these live streams were actually the travel agents. So we're building a brand new database of travel agents, and we're up over 200 agents now on that new database. It's always challenging when you're trying to get some of the smaller boutique products, into the training of the travel agents overseas. But this live stream gives us the opportunity to come to your location and do this. And we are planning to do maybe 3 or 4 live streams every year, so we certainly don't want to saturate the market. So that's one of the ways that we do agent training. Another way that we can do agent training is, it's changed over the years. This is how we used to do it. So originally when we're in the UK and Europe, which are our biggest markets, we had this format you can see on screen now. We call it speed dating. Basically, you can see myself there. Gee, I was a skinny bloke back then. I need to drop a few kilos and look like that again, I think. That's skinny bloke compared to looking on camera now. But sitting around the table there in front of me is a group of French agents from a company called Australie à la carte, which is one of the biggest travel wholesalers in France. In the background, you might see Alva Hemming there, who at the time was representing Mornington Peninsula. So we have these tables set up where the agents, we have a 10-minute appointment, and then they all have to get up and move to the next table. So in the industry, it's commonly known as speed dating. But when you've got language barriers and so forth, it's always a challenging thing to do. So Sydney Melbourne Touring, in partnership with Visit Victoria and the other regions of Victoria, was very, very delighted to introduce a whole different format of training. We always try and be innovative in these regards. So what we did was we created this live television program, again using cameras and lights and all of those sorts of things. The first one that we did was called Melbourne Tonight. Then we did a Euro mission type format. And in the last 2 years of continuing this style of training, we put together this program called the Melbourne Identity. So now when we're presenting to the audience, instead of having that round table style, we actually have a stage set up. We do entertaining ways of educating the audience, so they better retain the information and really stay more attentive during the whole presentation. And this is what the audience looks like now. So remember the shot with the French before, when they're sort of sitting around the table, glazing into the computer, probably thinking about what they're going to have for dinner later or how many emails they've got to get back to. But with this new format, this is the Flight Centre audience in London, and look at the engagement of the audience in the show. They are really, really engaged. And when we talk to them during the halftime break and also the end of the evening and ask them a few questions about what do they remember from what's been presented so far, what they retain is indeed very, very strong. So that's the new way that we do the agent training. Another big part of our role when we're overseas is product managers. We meet with product managers, and usually we have at least a 20-minute appointment if we're on the missions. Otherwise, we might go to their offices. This particular shot here was taken in Amsterdam with some of our Dutch product managers, and I'm talking to a couple of people here from Travel Essence. The closest girl on your screen there is Brooke, and Brooke has already travelled lots of the drives between Sydney and Melbourne and directly engaged quite a lot of product operators. So they're very, very happy to be a part of the Travel Essence program. These are the people who make it all happen. You can see on the table in front there, I've got the map where I can talk about the different locations, the recommended places to stop, the great activities that you can do along the way. So I guess these are the sorts of things which is always challenging to communicate with our industry. Of what does Sydney Melbourne Touring do? What am I buying into? Well, we're trying to show you some examples now of exactly what we do. We're trying to educate this worldwide audience on why they should be recommending to their clients that they take a self-drive between Sydney and Melbourne. And of course, spend lots of money along the way, which is what it's all about, that boost to our regional economies. We also have a brand new strategic plan, so we're very, very delighted with this. It's one of the things that Terry drove just before he stepped down as chair and then handed it on to Glenn to run with. This is our new 3-year strategic plan. It was put together by Tanya Jacobs, who used to be at Visit Victoria, now has this business called the Tourism Ninja. This is quite a comprehensive document. Hopefully you've been getting our newsletters, and in our newsletters was a download link to the strategic plan. So if you don't have a copy of the plan yet and you'd like one, all you need to do is send me an email. I'll give you my address details later on, but hopefully you have them. It's just paul@sydneymelbournetouring.com. That'll get to me, and we can send you a download link to the strategic plan. It's really good reading. But if I just have a look at the screen there, you can see I've got the goals on the left-hand side. So for the next 3 years, we have very strong marketing goals, also delivering value to our members as a goal, a product development goal, a digital goal, and an insights goal. So they're the key things that we're going to be looking at in the next 3 years as a part of our current strategic plan. And then, of course, our website. I was mentioning before that the website has been quite an evolving process over the years. Originally, when I first started with Sydney Melbourne Touring, it was more of a trade-based website. But over the years, we've developed that more into a consumer website now. So we've changed it as we've gone. The website, like I said, it's more of a consumer site now, but we will be looking at a new one. Some of the features that we've introduced in our website is the booking button, which is 100% commission free. So I think it's important to note that, you know, as a partner of Sydney Melbourne Touring, if you have a booking URL or a booking system that you're using, you can have a link from the Sydney Melbourne Touring listing page direct to your website. And I've just, before we started the live stream last night, I went through and had a look at the stats, because we can record every time that booking button is clicked, every time your email address link is clicked, every time your website address is clicked, we can count it. So whilst we can't count how many bookings you're actually getting from Sydney Melbourne Touring website, we can count how many clients we're bringing right to your front door, and hopefully you can close the sale from that point forward. But I did a bit of an adding up of how many times booking buttons have been clicked on the Sydney Melbourne Touring website in the last 12 months, and it's over 20,000. It's about 23,000 times someone has clicked a booking button that's gone direct to the booking page of one of our Sydney Melbourne Touring partners. So it is a very, very strong opportunity to to be able to get that direct business from people who are interested in doing a drive between Sydney and Melbourne. Now, I mentioned how much the website has evolved over the years, and now we have a brand new website on the way. It's a part of our 3-year strategic plan, is to build a new website. One of the things that we're going to do just before we start that is our social media listening activity. That's where we go back over the last 12 months of various social media platforms and see what people along the drive are actually talking about, what photos they're sharing, what sorts of things they're liking and experiencing. So we start to get a real feel of what sorts of things are, basically turning our customers on. So when we then write the brief for the new website, we can really make sure we capitalize on these experiences that people who have been doing the drive for the last 12 months or so are really enjoying. I'm just going to lean over and switch over my notes here. So one of the big things that we've done more recently is get more engaged in social media and a lot more of that consumer direct stuff in addition to what we do with our international trade. And the man who looks after all of our social media joins us now, and it's Adam Fletcher. G'day, Adam.
Good morning. How are you? Good to be here, Paul.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Now, you've had quite a long association with Sydney Melbourne Touring, of course, because not only are you doing all of our social media, but you built that website as a trade website. And over the years, we've sort of modified it for mobile design friendliness, and we've modified it for consumer. It's been quite a road, hasn't it, Adam?
Indeed. That was quite some time ago, and the commercial or the tourism focus has been on it now for a good number of years. And it's great that it's going to be taken to the next level with the social media listening coming on and a new website looking to be built in the near future.
That's fabulous. And just before I ask the next question, I might just remind anyone who's viewing or who's come on a bit late, on the right-hand side of your screen, don't forget that little chat button there. If you've got any questions at all, you can click on that little chat button, put in a name or your business name or whatever, and then ask away. And I've got that program open right in front of me, so I can answer any questions that might come through when you're doing that. So back to Adam. Adam, what sort of social media activity are we doing with Sydney Melbourne Touring? Like, what platforms and so forth are we using?
Yeah, Paul, there's quite a number of platforms. Primarily, we're using Facebook, as everyone would be familiar with. Also, I'm really excited about Pinterest. We started up the Pinterest account early last year, and that has absolutely gone gangbusters. Really excited with the attention and actually the click-through rate from Pinterest to operators' content on the Sydney Melbourne Touring website. There's Instagram also, which is fantastic, and Twitter as well, and also YouTube. So there's primarily 5 platforms, as I said: Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And can I just say, these platforms give us a great opportunity to use members and operators' content to get it out to our audience. We've got thousands of followers on each of those profiles, but more than the followers themselves, it's really our paid and targeted marketing campaigns that are proving to be most important and getting the most results. So, for instance, I think you saw earlier, Ant had a grab up on the screen, Puffing Billy, which has had our paid in total. It's had 4,340 people it's reached with 361 engagements, and around about 80 of those engagements, I think, are click-throughs to the website. So the boosted program, which we did earlier this year, around about or just after Easter, we received, and can I just say the budget on that I think was around about $30 or $50. We got 3,581 people we reached. And you can see with the graph here, we can look into that audience and break it down as to the gender. We can go into age group, and it's this is the critical stuff with the social media marketing that we're doing. We're able to look at the audience, the gender, the age, as I said, their nationality even, which is becoming more and more critical. I think you spoke with Glenn about inbound tourists, international tourists, and the trend that's going on there. So we're able to target audiences, and this is where I would say to members and operators, this is where the rubber hits the road. This is the really critical stuff where we can get your offering out to our audience and target it.
That's fabulous, Adam. Look, we've got some results coming up on the screen. I want to come back to those just before we really get into those results, which is, it's pretty stunning what we've seen so far, but I think there's a bit more to come there. You spoke about that engagement, how many views, how many impressions and so forth, but how many people are engaging. What do you think is the key to engagement? I mean, it's a pretty big part of social media, that engagement side, isn't it?
Exactly. Look, the key to engagement is really being on the platform and being active and being open to comments and engaging with people who want to ask questions. It's also about authenticity. This is the data that I'm looking at the moment is talking all about authenticity, and just going back to the age groups, it's Gen Z that are kind of driving where social media is going, and that ties in with engagement. So the authenticity of content is incredibly important to engage with your audience, with the different age groups. It just brings to mind one example of an operator with motorhomes, and once again that goes back to what Glenn was saying before about road trips and people wanting to do road trips and hire a vehicle to do a road trip. I was quite surprised to look at the data, and often with the data there will be a spike with a particular age group. With motorhomes, there is no real spike. It's the young people, 18 to 25, 25 to 34, those people with young families, and particularly the sort of grey nomads, or those above 65, are actually hiring these vehicles, and so we're able to tap into that and see those stats, and then be able to target our content and engage more deeply with those particular audiences.
That's fabulous. And I noticed when I was doing the review of the booking stats before, you're talking about motorhomes, Maui campers is actually the highest booked product on the Sydney Melbourne Touring website, and I think you've done quite a lot of social media. And I guess one of the important things to start, again, just before we look at the examples, we can only do so much our end.
Yeah.
Once we get to the consumer's end, to the product end, it's really important that they are presented in a way that makes the consumer want to buy, because some of our partners still only have they've used the same 50 words from the brochure on the website, but on the website, of course, you can have a lot more words, you can have a lot more images.
Exactly.
And you can really sell your product. So we do all this work to get people to their page.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a case where the page can let them down at that point if it's not as strong as it could be?
Indeed, yes, and that is quite evident out there. As you said, yeah, we can only do so much. It is about authenticity, so we try and make our content as authentic as possible. Members' content that comes in, we'll do a little bit of editing before it goes up on the SMT website to try and optimise it for authenticity, engagement, click-throughs and all that sort of stuff. But once that person, once a guest or a visitor to the site has clicked on the booking link and gone through to the operator's website, we have no control over that. So this is really where the operator has to get engaged and get value out of this program by optimising their booking, whether it's a booking engine or just a landing page that we're taking them to, optimising that content.
I've got these notes here to keep me on track, and I keep thinking of these questions from what you're saying, completely outside of my notes. But looking at the time, we're half an hour into the program already, so we will have to speed up. But just a thought on that point. With this live stream equipment, there's absolutely no reason why we can't do a workshop one morning on how to have the very best listing on your SMT website.
Exactly. That's
Great.
exactly right.
Great.
Yep.
So that's the product development goal of our strategic plan. How can we make your tourism business really shine? So I think that's a great thing we can do in the future. Now, I did mention you had a few stats and a few stories to tell. Let's run through them.
Yeah, sure. So again, what you're seeing on screen here, Central Deborah Mine, gold mine out at Bendigo. We borrowed that content. Can I use the word borrowed? Which is a video, and I'll highlight the fact that it is video because this is also incredibly important. Video itself gets 38% greater engagement across pretty much all the popular social platforms than just a static image. So we're able to get great results with this particular video. As you can see, 2,460 people reached, 50 engagements, of which a good number of those were click-throughs to the website. And we are actually able to link from our social media campaigns directly to an operator's site as well and track that. So it's not like they're coming from the social media platform to Sydney Melbourne Touring, having to read something there, then click on a booking link. We can take those users directly to the operator's content itself.
Fabulous.
So this and just Ant, if you can go back to move forward to that Pinterest slide there. So this again, we were able to grab some video content, some existing video content with permission, and put up a post about the Merimbula whale watching from October through to December, which is going on now. This has had no boosting whatsoever. Nothing. We haven't paid anything or boosted this in any way whatsoever. But you can see it's had 1.2 thousand video views, an average time of 8 seconds, 30 saves, and there's also additional stats where we can see how they've clicked through, and you can see here. So impressions for the month middle of October to yesterday, I think in fact middle of November, 13.29 thousand impressions, which is eyeballs on content. Engagements, we've had 521 engagements, and most of this is just organic traffic. So going back to I know I'm maybe going off point here, but interesting stats are that Pinterest has the greatest longevity for content of any social media content out there. So that's why, as I mentioned earlier, that's why I'm incredibly excited about it, because Pinterest content has an incredibly long lifespan and just keeps working for us even after 12 months, for instance. So you can see some of the stats here. Total engagements, so the top one, the Merimbula whale watching video, has had 120 engagements, and you can see the percentage value relative to the impressions. So I think there's an average of about 8% engagement, which includes click-throughs. Now, 8%, I think, in any marketing person's language, is a great engagement rate, a great click-through rate.
And obviously the content there, obviously there was only one or two on that previous slide that I saw were paid. The rest of it was organic. So the content plays such a big part. And Adam, this opportunity is open to all SMT partners and regions, yeah? That's
correct. Yes. So I would encourage operators to contact Paul or John. To look at doing a custom program for their own operation, and yeah, as you said, it's open to any operator out there. We can tap in and use our experience and tap into these audiences to get you the bookings.
That's fabulous, Adam. Well, look, it's an awesome job, and social media is really opening up our eyes because obviously being a touring route and the trade marketing organisation for so long, now we're really starting to get involved in the consumer direct side of things, not forgetting the importance of working with trade, of course. And social media is just such a great way of actually tracking and seeing the return on the investment as we go through it.
Indeed.
So thank you very much, Adam. It's been awesome to chat with you today.
You're welcome.
And get that information. And it's nice I get on well with Adam because we've got the same haircut, and it's really nice to be able to talk to the people who actually sit behind the scenes and put all of this great work together. So thanks very much, Adam.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, so let's talk about some of our in-market examples. I'll try and do these relatively quickly. In terms of wholesale space, in these various markets that we have, the United Kingdom, we have about 20 brochure exposures. Germany and Switzerland, around 30. Other Europe and Scandinavia, 9. North America, 9. Southeast Asia, 11. And New Zealand, 2. So in total, we have about 82 odd programs around the world that we have some sort of presence in. And the other things to talk about is some of our statistics. So these are from figures that we get from our research data that we collect at the Eden Killer Wow Museum. So these are mostly coastal drive related stats. But UK and Europe make up our top 5 markets. The 40 to 69 year age group made up 49% in the first year, but the previous year was 60%. So the actual numbers have dropped a bit, but if you want to look at why that percentage has dropped, because the next group, the under 39 year age group, has actually climbed by about the same amount. So this year, 45% were in the under 39 year age group, as opposed to 32% the previous year. So a slight change there in the actual percentage, but certainly no change in the total numbers that are growing. They have increased a little bit. Over around 61% are on their first visit to Australia with our international visitors, and over 50% of them still book through a travel agent or an online travel agent. So that's why we still place such a big focus on trade, as well as the consumer stuff that we were talking about with Adam a short time ago. In terms of the onshore activities that we do internationally, you've got programs like ATE, which is the Australian Tourism Exchange, and next year we're very pleased to say it's in Melbourne, so we're looking forward to that. Also ATEC. Now ATEC is the Australian Tourism Export Council. We're looking at a photograph on screen here from Meeting Place, where we meet with inbound tour operators and give them sort of updates on new product, new experiences and so forth. If you're not sure what an inbound tour operator is, the overseas wholesaler, when they're buying a package in Australia, they work through these guys, the inbound tour operators. So they're a very important part of the international trade distribution. And every year we attend this particular event put on by the Australian Tourism Export Council. And if getting involved in international is something that you'd like to do, that is a wonderful organisation that you can get a lot more information about by contacting me or just Googling Australian Tourism Export Council and having a look at what they offer in terms of their membership and support for the Australian tourism industry. And onto the in-market activity now. And if we go to the UK, we're looking at various things like our product managers I was talking about before. I'm sitting down here with Liz from Bridge the World Travel in London. Again, a 20-minute appointment. When I was over there in the most recent trip, I was talking about some of our awesome new product, like the beautiful luxury glamping product at Balgownie Estate in Bendigo. Of course, the great work that Craig's been doing, and Rowan, of course, at Murray River Paddle Steamers. So product managers are always interested in understand what is the new product, what is going to excite their customers to want to do that drive between Sydney and Melbourne or a part of it. So the product managers are a big part of it. Familiarisation tours, this was March, not this year, but the year before. We had the top 10 retail selling agents of a company called Gold Medal, which is owned by the Donata network, which is absolutely massive around the world. These guys flew into Melbourne, stayed one night in Melbourne, then did a 6-day road trip up to Sydney along the coastal drive, one night in Sydney, and then they flew home again. And this is at the Edge, part of the Eureka Sky Deck. So it was after they had one good night's sleep and a rest from the long flight, straight into it. We did some awesome things along the way. So Sydney Melbourne Touring are always encouraging our product partners and our retail agents to come to Australia and let Anthony and I show them firsthand what sort of wonderful experiences that their clients can do along the drive. In the Europe market, there's great shows and events that we attend like ITB. ITB is the largest tourism event in the world, and it's held in Berlin every February or March. And last year we attended this event for the first time. Sitting next to me here is Anne Lena, and Anne's from Boomerang Travel, which is a part of the TUI travel network in Germany now, one of the very, very biggest suppliers. And we've enjoyed a lifetime partnership with the Boomerang team. This is just a wider shot showing the Australia stand, but there's something like 14 or 15 halls right across, ITB with every single country you could imagine. And this stand here is the Australian component of that stand. So it was an absolute pleasure to be a part of that and have some real quality time with some of our German, Dutch and Scandinavian buyers who attend this event called ITB in Europe. North America, we were delighted to be a part of a marketplace in North America this year. This particular shot here is the Victoria team. Sydney Melbourne Touring was a part of the Victorian Tourism Product Operators. These are some of the other partners who are over there selling. We've got winery companies, tour companies and so forth represented there, and accommodation. And this is the actual appointment schedule. It's not showing the entire room, but a fairly big piece of it. It's a 3-day show, and there's well over 100 appointments conducted during those 3 days, and then lots of networking opportunities and so forth as well. And the day before this, or a couple of days before this, we had a similar show in Canada called Go Away Corroboree, which was dealing with all of those agents. So that's the USA and Canada. We're just doing a bit of a swap now because Adam, who we were talking to before, has never ever operated the switching gear before. But I need Anthony next to me now, so we put Adam into the hot seat. Let's see how he goes as a trainee on the switching desk. So we're going to go to Channel 4 now, Adam, to the wide shot as I introduce my colleague Anthony from Sydney Melbourne Touring.
Good morning, everyone.
And Anthony, you're going to give us a little bit of an update on what sort of activities that you've been doing in the Southeast Asia and New Zealand markets.
That's right, yeah. So Southeast Asia and New Zealand are also the two important markets we promote internationally. So, for example, if you have a look at the slide, if you press number 8 on the disc, I'm just training Adam on the go.
Doing a great job.
So we also do in-market activities, both individually or through tourism state or regional tourism organizations. So, for example, this one, as we can see on the screen, was a Visit Victoria mission a couple of years ago.
Visit Canberra
mission. We also did a Visit Victoria mission after that as well. So those are the two biggest stakeholders state-wise that we partner with. So we go into market. If we can go into the next slide, as you can see, we do product manager meetings. This lady, she's from Qantas Holiday Tours. She actually did a little famille afterwards, which was sponsored by Sydney Melbourne Touring, and then saw a bit of South Coast in New South Wales and Canberra. And then she's very interested in going to do a longer itinerary from Canberra via the coast all the way to Melbourne after that famille, which was really great. So if we go to the next slide, as you can see, this was New Zealand. So New Zealand is a little bit different market, actually. It's more... it's almost like a half domestic market because of the booking system, but we can go into detail with that in future training sessions. But this is one of the partners we did with House of Travel. They had a consumer fair in Auckland, and we, along with a few other Visit Victoria partners and Visit Victoria itself, went to the show and promoted a lot of the self-drive options there as well. And if we can go back to the slide again, and just the next slide, this was a Visit Victoria mission we did as well, where we went and talked to a lot of trade and retail agents, training them on how to sell Sydney Melbourne touring routes, and especially in New Zealand market, we focus a bit more on the inland drive, which has a bigger traction from that New Zealand market as well. And if you can go to the next slide, and we also do females. We did a big New Zealand agent female a couple of years ago with about almost 30 agents. Went through the inland drive, experienced a lot of the products and activities, and then it was a big eye opener for them. A lot of people thought, oh well, there wasn't much to see. But after the female, they almost feel like, there's too much to see. You need to extend the itinerary. If you can see the lady in that pink hair, that lady there, she was a travel agent, and she was so impressed with the trip, and she actually came back with her family, actually her partner, and then did the whole trip again. But instead of staying 1 night at each location, she stayed at 2 nights at each location, just to explore, the area, the region, what's there to offer. So that was, a direct sort of result, if you like, in terms of what females and partnering with trade can do in international markets. You can see we do trainings at market, and you can see that gentleman in blue, that's actually Craig. We did a sales course there with Craig as a team. And if you go to the next slide, as you can see, Craig has gone crazy after a few drinks of sparkling water. So that's what happens when you go on the road, and just be careful with your partner. But Craig is one of our very important partners in New Zealand market as well. So I think he is coming up to have a chat with us.
He is shortly, yes, that's great. Well, thank you very much, Anthony, for that update. That's
no worries.
It's really
Thank
good
you.
to get all of that information. You can jump up now and go back on the switching desk. I think Adam did quite an awesome job there. I think he's gone from his L plates straight into his P plates, which is really good. He's now having a big debate with Anthony whether he's going to stay there or Anthony's going to get back into the hot seat. We're just looking at some vision here of Murray River paddle steamers, and Craig, one of the brothers who purchased the business a few years ago, actually edited this video. I think he's trying to put me out of a job. I might say quite a lot of the footage in it is my footage though, so at least I was involved one way or the other. But yeah, Craig and Rowan actually bought the business about 4 years ago, and they've come in with brand new eyes and ideas. Now, Echuca Moama, is one of the jewels in Australia's crowns in terms of destinations. It's on the beautiful Murray River. They've really preserved that history with the paddle steamers, and kept them all alive, which is absolutely awesome. And very well established Australia-wide and also New Zealand, because the New Zealanders, the Kiwis, seem to have always had such a fascination with the Murray River, being a much bigger river system than what you see throughout New Zealand. So it's always big in that market. But getting it into the UK and Europe is always challenging. Sydney Melbourne Touring has been working really hard on those markets for many years, and then of course Craig comes along with his new eyes and ideas, and bang, we're starting to see a bigger presence now in UK and Europe. And as a matter of fact, Craig joins us right now. How are you, Craig?
Great, Paul. Delighted to be here. Thanks.
Awesome to have you here. So I've got some questions here for you if I just push my little button over there. So first and foremost, it's about 4 years since you've been operating the business at Murray River Paddle Steamers. So what has changed in that 4 years, Craig?
Well, I think the biggest thing was that we decided to have an international strategy for the business, because domestic has been almost 100% of the business for a long time, and upgrading Emmylou to a standard where international visitors would come along and join us.
Okay, so really well established domestically. Why were you looking at the international market?
Principally because we wanted to have a greater share of the pie, and bring people out of season as well. Emmylou always did 1 or 2 night cruises, but we learnt that people will actually come in the off season as well, and mainly they can be international. So we've gone from circa 1% international guests doing an Emmylou cruise, potentially more doing daily cruises, to around 12% now, and that's only probably the last 2 years since we did the renovation to Emmylou.
Yeah, so when you say you've been involved in Murray River Paddle Steamers for 4 years, I guess the first year or two was really finding your feet and learning who's who in the zoo and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And now you're really starting to engage in that international. I mentioned before that, having that presence in the UK, and I have to say congratulations, because you've just popped up as a half page in Trailfinders, the biggest wholesaler in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
We've got the brand new brochure coming out today. In fact, here it is on your screen. And this is what you're actually seeing now. Now, I I can't remember the print run, but I think it's somewhere between 250 to 500,000 distributed to Trailfinders offices right across the UK. Trailfinders is the biggest single wholesaler in the UK sending business to Australia. And there's the Murray, with a half page. Well, in fact, it's a full page because you've got the half page shot of the Emmylou that you spoke about before, but the rest of the content is all about the Murray River. Now, as I said, this is in the UK. This is a game changer in the UK, but Craig, it's just so critical that this is not just going to benefit Murray River paddle steamers, yeah?
No, exactly. I mean, when we bought the business, it didn't partner with anyone, period. Now we have 23 local partners. So they're our onshore tour partners. They're our daily cruise partners like Morrison's River Winery, the new gin distillery that's just opened up. We've created a new product with them and the winery as well. So, for us it was, it is a so-called hero product, but it needed to be a lot better. And, with your help, I mean, I wasn't a proponent of the Sydney Melbourne touring route when I first came into the business. My view was we're on the route, so why do we need to be part of it? But since I've learnt what you guys do internationally, and that view's obviously changed, and you can't get in those sort of brochures. That's circa 3 years' work to get there, and that's not only Sydney Melbourne Touring, but it's Visit Victoria, etc. Promoting our product. We learnt initially from going to ATE that we needed a different product. And that led us to do the renovations to make sure the product can be ex-Melbourne as well. Since we introduced the ex-Melbourne transfers, almost 80% of our international bookings are actually taking that option up. So it's about having self-drive, but also having an option to be ex-Melbourne as well.
That's fantastic. Now, you're talking before about the stakeholders, and I know Glenn said before that Bendigo was doing a lot of partnership work. So how does that one work with Bendigo, with regions outside of Chuka-Moama?
Well, it's about natural touring routes, and that's why, Echuca is on the touring route because, we know 80% of people are either coming up through Melbourne, i.e. through Bendigo, or coming the other way down through Wodonga and across the Murray and then to Echuca and down through Bendigo. So, partnering with Bendigo is a natural for us. And when I was in London last week attending UK Marketplace, we presented the new product with Balgani Estate. So we're having 2-night stay at Balgani in a winery, a safari tent, and 1 or 2 nights on the boat. And that actually got more interest than our 1 to 4 night cruises. And I've had feedback from a number of product managers already. So partnering up is just so important because you've got to present something that's unique.
Unique and different, absolutely. Yeah. So how has being a part of Sydney Melbourne Touring been a benefit to your business, Craig?
It benefits, one, through promotion, and for a small cost, you've got people out there promoting your business. But you've got to have the product as well. Sydney Melbourne Touring, has made the difference for us in terms of having people overseas, as I said, talking about our business and promoting it, because you can't do it all by yourself. It's impossible in the international market. You've got to have a good product, you've got to make it unique, but you've got to have people out there talking about your product. Being in a brochure like Trailfinders and Best of Travel Group in Europe, which we've just got into as well, that's just not Craig Burgess going out there and talking to agents. That's about a lot of other people talking about it as well.
Fantastic. And if it's nice to have a chat with somebody from an operator's perspective. If there are any tourism operators out there who perhaps would like to look at international and don't know where to start, what advice would you give them, Craig?
Well, talk to you and Anne and John as he comes around. I mean, I'm an ex wealth management and banking. I mean, travel's got more acronyms than banking, which is amazing. So to learn about all the ITOs, it was a little bit daunting, but bringing it straight back to be as simple as possible is that you've got to be able to have a good package product, and then talk to the right people like yourselves to get it onto the map in terms of what product managers are looking for. They're all crying out for unique product. So if you present something that's unique and just a little bit different, yes, it's going to cost around 25% potentially, but as I mentioned to you yesterday, if you have your product listed with AOT as an example, which is Hello World, you're almost covering 45% of all the agents in the world that are buying product
massive
in Australia.
program, yeah.
So just by listing your product with one ITO, you can cover almost half the market, which is UK and Europe.
Craig, I think for a banker, you're a really nice bloke.
I missed the Royal Commission, which was good.
Yeah, you got out when the timing was good. Yeah. Thanks so much, Craig. I really appreciate your time in the insert, and congratulations again on getting inside Trailfinders. It's an awesome result, and that's what we strive on is getting those results and getting more and more of the experiences between Sydney and Melbourne exposed to an international audience.
Exactly. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks very much. Great to have you as part of the program. So, where to from here? Well, we've got our brand new program that we're just launching now. This is our new prospectus, and we hope to get this out tomorrow. Now, our new program is going to be an 18-month program, which means it'll start from the 1st of January 2020 and go through to the 30th of June 2021. And then from that point forward, it'll be each 12 months. We did move our program to 2 years because we were finding that with the Australian Tourism Exchange, we would try and have a new product manual for each ATE. And some years they were like 10 months apart, and it seemed ridiculous to be out selling a new program, in less than 12 months before the last one. So we changed it to 2 years. However, digital has now really changed that. Our product manual print run is like 100 copies. Everybody wants it digital, and digitals can be updated very easily. Plus, we have some issues where we have some people buy in for a 2-year program and then decide to drop out after 12 months and so forth. So we've decided to go back to a 12-month program. So this initial one will be an 18-month program, and then from June 2021, the Sydney Melbourne Touring program will be an annual buy-in once again. It'll be each 12 months from that point. A couple of items have come up in our strategic plan, which we'll be following, and one is with the product manual, the businesses must be inbound ready. Being inbound ready means having rate agreements with inbound tour operators, understanding that international distribution, and if it's something where you're not at the moment but you'd like to be, we also in our strategic plan have a product development role so we can help get you there. Otherwise, looking at the website now going towards the consumer end is for anybody. Doesn't matter what sort of business you're operating, whether it's internationally ready or not. The website is a consumer-based activity. All of the fabulous social media work that Adam's doing, anybody can buy into that website. And the price is there on the screen. So, the website listing for 18 months, $590 plus GST. It's as cheap as chips, particularly when you start looking at all of those, social media possibilities and so forth. And, if that can bring you at least half a dozen to a dozen bookings over the next 12 months, if we're doing everything right, it should pay for itself pretty quickly. So it's a great opportunity. But for the inbound marketing program, starting from $12.50 plus GST for 18 months, gets you into the program and the familial groups and the overseas marketing and the ATE and all of that sort of stuff. So we can provide more details on that when the prospectus goes out. The man who's sending out the prospectus is this man. This is John McGaw. John did our sales last year, or 2 years ago now, and he's come back on board to help us out again to do the sales. So the email address is there, john@sydneymelbournetouring.com.au. John's got a little bit of a throat thing going on at the moment. He sounds a bit like Gus Mercurio when you're talking to him on the phone. He's actually in having some very minor surgery on his throat today, just to hope to get the vocal cords working again. So certainly for the remainder of this week, we're expecting mostly email contact from John as he gets that prospectus out and all of the information. If you've got any questions, feel free to ring me. And then from next week, I'm sure John's voice will be back to full strength and he'll be on the phone calling through again. So any questions or comments, my email address, as I said before, is simply paul@sydneymelbournetouring.com.au. Anthony's is the same, but put Anthony instead of Paul. John's is the same, but put John instead of Paul or Anthony. So if you want to get in contact with us anytime, please do. We do like the Sydney Melbourne Touring program to be a two-way communication street. We have so many great things that you can get involved in this marketing program, but you really need to do just that. You need to get involved. It's not the sort of program where you buy in and you sit next to your phone and wait for it to ring. As you heard from Craig, getting involved in some of those other things, and within 3 years he's got a page in the largest travel wholesaler in the UK. So anything's possible. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the live stream. We'll be back again this evening at 7:30 to do it all again. And if you've got any questions or comments in the meantime, or don't receive a copy of the prospectus and you'd like one, please get in contact. So for now, we'll wrap up, and thank you very much for watching.